Picture this: a sprawling, sun-drenched valley in ancient Gaul. 5,000 Roman legionaries, the most disciplined fighting force of their time, stand in perfect, silent ranks. Their polished helmets glint in the sun, a wall of crimson and steel. These men are the masters of the known world, an engine of conquest that has steamrolled every opponent it's ever faced. They're confident, they're ready, and they're about to have a very bad day. Because on the ridge overlooking that valley, 43 soldiers from the future are checking their ammo. Can you imagine the sheer shock as those disciplined Roman formations are shattered by weapons they can't even begin to comprehend? This is the story of what happens when a handful of elite soldiers make a desperate last stand against an ancient empire, where every single bullet counts. This is what happened when the unstoppable force of the past met the bleeding edge of the future. To really get a grip on the absolute slaughter we're about to witness, we need to break down the two sides. On one side, you have what is essentially a full-strength Roman legion. And this isn't some disorganized mob, this is a professional army. A legion had 10 cohorts, each with about 480 men, bringing our total to just under 5,000 soldiers. These guys are battle-hardened, organized, and fanatically disciplined. Their entire military philosophy is built on perfect order, allowing them to fight as a single, cohesive unit. They use a flexible checkerboard formation to rotate fresh troops to the front. Their centurions are seasoned officers who command absolute obedience. They are a system, a machine designed for one thing: close quarters domination. They're trained to hurl their javelins, the pila to shatter an enemy charge before drawing their short swords, the gladius to finish the job face to face. They've conquered lands from the misty shores of Britain to the dusty borders of the Parthian Empire. They've never met a problem they couldn't march over. They are the apex predators of their time. On the other side, a single reinforced United States Marine rifle platoon, 43 men. On a Roman battlefield, they're not even a rounding error. But these 43 Marines represent 2,000 years of battlefield evolution. Every Marine is a rifleman first, trained to be brutally effective. They don't just fight as 43 individuals. They operate like a single, deadly organism, bound by the most intense training on the planet. They talk to each other instantly over mesh network radios, giving them a battlefield awareness a Roman general couldn't even dream of. The platoon is led by a lieutenant and a platoon sergeant, two seasoned leaders orchestrating a tiny symphony of destruction. It's broken down into 3 squads, and inside those squads, 4-man fire teams. This structure gives them incredible flexibility to cover multiple angles, suppress enemy movement, and maneuver with a speed that would look supernatural to any ancient army. They are stranded in time, with no backup, no air support, and zero hope of resupply. All they have is each other, their training, and what they can carry. The real game changer here isn't skill or bravery, it's technology. It's the massive gap between the Iron Age and the Information Age. Let's start with the Roman arsenal. The legionaries' main ranged weapon is the pilum, a heavy javelin. It's a smart design, meant to be thrown from about 20 to 30 meters out. Its main job is to stick in an enemy's shield, weighing it down and making it useless. After that one volley, it's all close combat with the gladius. Their defense is the iconic scudum, a large wooden shield, and larica segmentata, armor made of overlapping iron strips. Against swords and spears, this stuff makes them a walking fortress. Now, let's look at the Marines. The standard rifle is the M27 infantry automatic rifle, firing a 5.56mm round. Its effective firing range is over 500 meters, more than 10 times the maximum range of a pilum. Each Marine is carrying, at a minimum, 210 rounds in 730-round magazines. For our 43 Marines, that's a conservative total of over 9,000 rounds ready to be sent downrange. And it gets better. The platoon has grenadiers carrying M320 grenade launchers. These can lob a 40mm high explosive grenade out to 400 meters, creating a kill zone that can take out a whole cluster of enemies at once. Each fire team also has an automatic rifleman to provide suppressive fire, pinning the Romans down while the rest of the team maneuvers. Add in M67 fragmentation grenades, each spraying steel fragments over a 15-meter area, and you've got a recipe for devastation. So how does Roman gear stack up against all this? Well, it doesn't. A modern 5.56mm round will rip right through a wooden scutum. It will punch through the thin iron strips of the larica segmentata like it's paper. Roman armor, made to stop a sword thrust, simply wasn't designed for the velocity of a modern bullet. The famous testudo, or tortoise formation, where legionaries lock shields to defend against arrows, would become a death trap. A single 40mm grenade landing in the middle would turn that impenetrable shell into a pressure cooker of shrapnel. But the Marines have one huge, terrifying weakness: logistics. Every round they fire is a round they can't get back. Their ammo is their hourglass. Once it's empty, the technology advantage vanishes, and the brutal math of 43 men versus thousands of angry legionaries with swords becomes a horrifying reality. This is the real story, a battle not just against a legion, but against time itself. The battle, every bullet counts. Let's set the scene. The 43 Marines have picked their spot, a rocky ridge overlooking a wide, open valley. It gives them a perfect field of fire and a natural bottleneck, forcing the Romans to come uphill, right into their guns. Down below, the legion of 5,000 assembles. The Roman commander, a legatus, probably scoffs at the strangely dressed figures on the ridge, dismissing them as local troublemakers. He gives the order, advance and clear them out. Part 1, shock and awe. The first Roman cohort, almost 500 men, starts its slow, steady march up the valley. They move in perfect lockstep, an unstoppable force. To them, this is just another Tuesday. They're expecting maybe a few arrows, a disorganized charge they'll swat away with ease. At 500 meters, the Marine lieutenant gives the order, and the first shot cracks through the silence. A Roman centurion, striding confidently at the front, simply crumples to the ground, a neat, impossible hole in his chest. Before anyone can react, another officer falls and another. The Marines are decapitating the enemy's command structure before the fight has even really started. The Romans are baffled. There was no arrow, no sound of a bowstring, just a sharp, unfamiliar crack from the hills, and their leaders are dropping like they've been struck by an angry god. At 400 meters, the lieutenant gives the next command: volley fire. 36 rifles erupt from the ridge in a deafening, continuous roar. For the Romans in the front ranks, the world just ends. Men are torn apart by invisible forces. Shields splinter, armor does nothing. The wounds are more gruesome than anything a sword could ever do. The psychological impact is devastating. These men understand the physics of their world. What they're seeing is, to them, nothing short of black magic. Panic and emotion completely alien to a Roman legion begins to ripple through the ranks. The front lines break and flee, trampling the men behind them. In less than 2 minutes, the first cohort has effectively ceased to exist. Part 2, the Roman response. The legatus, watching from the rear, is in shock. He can't process what he just saw, but he's a Roman commander, and his training tells him to use overwhelming force. He assumes the strange attack must be finite. He orders the next cohort's 1,000 men to charge, to close the distance and just swamp the enemy with bodies. This is exactly what the Marines were waiting for. It's time to bring out the heavy hitters. As the dense Roman formations surge forward, the grenadiers go to work. The thump-thump-thump of the M320 launchers sends 40mm grenades sailing into the packed ranks. Each explosion is horrific, scything through a dozen men at a time, shattering formations. The automatic riflemen open up with their M27s, unleashing sustained bursts of fire. They cut down the charging Romans like a scythe through wheat. The charge completely breaks down into a chaotic slaughter. The valley floor is now littered with hundreds of bodies. The advance stalled a bloody 200 meters from the Marines' position. The Romans have never taken casualties this fast. On this scale, their iron discipline is being systematically broken down by sheer firepower. Part 3, the grind. This is where the battle turns into a grim math problem. The Romans, though horrified, aren't broken. They still have thousands of men in reserve. The legatus, finally realizing a frontal assault is suicide, changes tactics. He orders his legion to spread out, to try and flank the Marines from both sides. He starts sending wave after wave, not necessarily to win, but to force the demons on the ridge to use up their lightning. For the Marines, the fight becomes a desperate struggle to save ammunition. It's no longer about killing, it's about making every single shot count. The platoon sergeant moves down the line, yelling orders, single shot. Aim for the officers, make every bullet count. The automatic rifles no longer fire in long bursts, but in short, controlled salvos. Grenadiers hold their fire, waiting for the perfect cluster of targets. For hours, this gruesome cycle repeats. The Romans advance, die, fall back, and are replaced by a fresh wave. The Marines inflict thousands of casualties, turning the slopes into a rampart of the dead, but that ticking clock is getting louder. The ammo count drops, ammo yellow, down to 3 mags a man. The rifle barrels are scorching hot. The initial shock and awe has turned into a brutal war of attrition, and that's the one fight the Marines caught and win. Part 4, the final stand. The Roman legatus sees his opening. The terrifying thunder from the ridge has died down. He gathers the last of his legion, maybe 1,000 or 1,500 survivors for one final, desperate charge. They are terrified and exhausted, but they are still legionaries. They raise their shields and surge forward, screaming, a human wave determined to drown the handful of sorcerers in a tide of steel. The Marines meet them with everything they have left. Every remaining grenade is thrown. The last belts of machine gun ammo are fired until the barrels glow. Rifles fire until they click empty. The Roman wave is savaged, but it doesn't stop. They claw their way up the ridge. Fueled by sheer numbers and desperation, the tech advantage is gone. The sound of gunfire is replaced by the roar of men and the clang of steel on steel. The fight has become what the Romans perfected centuries ago, a brutal hand-to-hand melee. The Marines fix bayonets, they draw their combat knives. They use their rifles as clubs. They aren't gods of thunder anymore. They're 43 exhausted men, out of ammo, fighting for their lives against 1,000 enraged soldiers. The disciplined chaos of modern warfare gives way to the primordial butchery of the ancient world. The aftermath and analysis. When the dust settles, the scene is one of pure devastation. The valley is carpeted with the bodies of nearly 4,000 Roman soldiers. The cost to the legion has been catastrophic, a loss it could never recover from. On the ridge, the outcome for the Marines is grim. In a best-case scenario, maybe a handful survive the final brawl, their victory marked by the mountain of Roman dead at their feet. But it's just as likely that none of them make it, simply overwhelmed in those final, desperate moments. So who won? Tactically, the Marines pulled off a victory that's almost impossible to wrap your head around. They effectively wiped out an entire Roman legion, a force over 100 times their size. They proved that a small, technologically superior unit can crush a vastly larger one. But strategically, the Romans won. They eliminated the threat. Even if it cost them nearly 5,000 of their best soldiers, the 43 Marines are gone. They can't hold the ground. They can't continue the war. It highlights the Marines' fatal flaw: logistics. Without a supply chain, their technological edge was just a temporary reprieve. They won the battle in the most spectacular way possible, but they were always going to lose the war. Conclusion: the clash between 43 Marines and 5,000 Romans is more than just a what if. It's a brutal illustration of how technology has rewritten the rules of war. It shows you the incredible bravery of the Roman soldier, but it also confirms the terrifying power of the modern one. The Romans fought with courage, but they brought swords to a gunfight, and the result was inevitable. It was a victory written in gunpowder and paid for with every last bullet. What if battle from history should we explore next? Let us know in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed this look into one of history's most lopsided battles, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more.